Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasha Namah. Namaste everyone and welcome to our study of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. The discrimination between the knower and the field and the knower of the field. So we have gone through the verses of this particular chapter, and now we are going through the whole chapter again. The idea in this session is to see how we will apply this knowledge. I would expect that in the first line of studies, we sort of had a look at the verses, the meaning of the words that are there, and could say that this chapter consists of 5 subtopics, let us say, but how we will integrate them all together now. We have done an analysis, we have separated them, different parts, different ideas. Now we will try to integrate it in a holistic way and also try to focus on how we would apply those teachings in our everyday life. There should not just be information on our head or knowledge, but how we translate that into action, into sadhana, because through sadhana, the personal benefit will come to us. So we would like this to be a bit more interactive. You have to speak up and say what type of ideas and questions that are popping in your head, share your understanding, ask the questions, and let us make it a little bit more fun and that way. So to set the ball rolling, last week we had a good discussion about what was the nature of the mind. And where is the mind? Is it part of the physical body, or it's an entity independent of the physical body? And we talked about various situations and experiences of people where they could function as a mind when they were not part of the body, what we call these outer body experiences or near-death experiences. I shared one interesting video with you about an experience of somebody who narrated how he saw his near-death experience. There's so many such cases, very similar in nature, with slight differences only, but they all go to one common conclusion, that we are a being that exists independent of this physical body. As in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna had said to Arjuna, we have enclosed ourselves with this physical body, and just like when the clothes become old, we can take them off. Likewise, when the bodies become old, we can take them off, and yet exists. What goes with the mind, that's very interesting, because that's what you're going to think about, what persists, what you have come in this world and what you're going to take with you, and where does that exist. So we say, the scriptures say, yatha karma, yatha shrutam. Karma is all the actions we do in our thoughts, words, and deeds. They leave the impressions in our mind. These impressions, in terms of continue in the mind even when the body is left behind, cremated, buried, whatever. And yatha shrutam. Shrutam means whatever has been learned through hearing. In those days, Shruti means the knowledge, spiritual knowledge that is acquired through hearing. That means in the olden days, they didn't have books, and they learned the teachings from their spiritual teachers by oral tradition. So Shruti. So in here it means whatever experiences that we have had, those experiences become translated into knowledge. Some type of awakening or knowledge comes out of every activity. And that knowledge continues with us, enriches us. And these are the two things we take with us. That is the area that one need to invest in, really. So it is an interesting discussion as to where these and how do these samskaras and knowledge are embedded and locked in the mind, so that when the mind goes out and later on it puts on another body, then those ideas that were embedded in the mind from this lifetime and previous lifetime, all those are remaining there, and they will have their impact in our thought, words, and deed in our future life. So we say when somebody is born, things begin to happen, and those things are as per our prarabdha karma. Prarabdha means like people say, Kapal mein likha hai. No, this is written on my forehead, so these things are happening me. It's not that I did something in this life and the consequences are coming to us. And if you know where is that prarabdha, what is the nature of that prarabdha, and how we can mitigate them or eliminate them to purify the mind. When a little deeper understanding is established about the nature of the mind and how it functions, what it contains, then we are a bit alert about what we put in there, and we understand what sadhana is trying to do, spiritual practices of japa and meditation. How do they help in the purification of the mind and the body, mind and the heart, sorry, not the body. So just to I gave a little bit of thought about the discussions last time, and I thought I'll add a few something in there. In Vedanta, we say there's a principle of oneness. Oneness means unity at every level. So if you look at this physical world, this world is world of matter. Matter in forms of electrons, protons that later on become more substantial material things. Those things that are that the same elements or fundamental particles that constitute a faraway galaxy is also part of our own body. In other words, there's a continuity at some deep level of a oneness of some very fundamental, some material stuff. Or if you take energy, well, that bundle of energy that is in the sun comes out in the form of light, is captured by a plant's chlorophyll, is stored in a form of starch in a potato, is eaten in by us. Basically, there's a flow of energy. Sometimes it takes some form of a matter in a more concreteous form, and sometimes it's released out there. But there is a oneness of energy, oneness of matter in here. At the physical world, we can say everything is one or uniform at some deep level. When you go to the next level, the mind, then just like our mind is, we feel them, our minds to be separate and disconnected from each other. Yet in reality, there is a cosmic mind. That cosmic mind is called Mahat. Or in Vedanta, it's also called the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic golden egg. In this, all our minds are all parts of that cosmic mind. So imagine a river that is flowing, and in that river, there's different little whirlpools, so eddy currents that are there, spinning around. The water is the medium, but there is some energy that gets disturbed and it creates a little bit whirlpool. We are those, our minds are those little whirlpools, imagine. And they spin at different, and they're of different sizes with different amount of energy and all those things. So in this cosmic mind, Mahat, we are little whirlpools. Our minds can be conceived as different whirlpools spinning in a particular direction, some clockwise, some anti-clockwise, some small, some big, but it's an energy. And when that energy is neutralized, then the mind ceases to be a mind, and the water is just plain smooth, and that's what you might say, that at that time it feels it oneness with the whole river. Until then, it is identified with one circle whirlpool of it there. So on the actions that we do in our thought, word, and deed, either add to the intensity of the whirlpool, or they reduce the intensity of it. If it's adding to it, we will call pravritti. It's getting more intense. Its identity will remain very strong. It has got a sense of I and me, and it's casting its influence around, bumping, knocking each other everywhere. But when it's becoming less and less and less, then you might say that person is humble, he's quiet, he's not disturbing anyone, he sort of has got a quiet existence and all those type of things. So that would be a good way to visualize this idea of mind and how we are in that mind, because then Let me put some drawings in there. So let us say there's a river flowing there, and the river is such that that there are little whirlpools in there. Okay, in different direction. Okay, and there might be others also. Opposite direction. It's like a screwdriver, you turn clockwise or anti-clockwise. And so all these things are happening. Each one is Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z. Each one has got that through the activity, through their passion, what they have been doing with great force, intensity over a long time, they keep on building onto that whirlpool. So when you go through a particular training, for example, you take a mind of a child, before he knows anything, he is learning ABCD and 1, 2, 3, he doesn't know why everyone is doing, he does it also. And he passes through various subjects in primary school and secondary school. And at some point they'll have to say, let's program this guy into be an engineer or doctor or teacher, and then we'll slot him in the society and he'll save us in this way for so many years. Then we'll retire him. Basically, what they take a mind, and through that series in a systematic way of training, courses, education, examinations, assignments, projects, and all that, we are embedding information in that whirlpool of that mind. And at some point, that person automatically behaves and works as that particular professional. So think in that particular way. Along with that, there are various other activities we do. Whatever we do with great impression or passion leaves a greater impression on that mind. So different people in different countries, different situations, different trials and tribulations of life build their own unique whirlpool, unique mind, and they carry that with them. Some of them will get more and more engrossed and caught in this world. The whirlpool becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they are at the mercy of the whirlpool. They spin with that. The whirlpool of this mind takes for the ride. So you will see, if you watch and observe yourself, how much of things we do consciously, knowingly, and how much more of them activities are there. It's just like instinctive. uh, there's an emotion or some energy in there that drives you. You say things, you do things, you don't reason every one of them. Sometimes it even counters your own reasoning. For example, you should not take fuzzy drinks and all those things. You know the science behind it's not good for health, but when you walk down the aisles of the supermarket, you pick that up anyway. That is not your mind. Your reason is telling you should not do, but something else makes you make it do it. So, and it's all your mind. So if you think deeply, so many things we say, we do, we react to, we respond to, they do not actually happen through a reasoning process. Most of them are like you are being controlled by something in there. And that's everyone's experiences. Some people can control themselves, others can't. Some of them get caught into that. So we say that is addictive. It will take you with a spin in spite of yourself. Such is the grip of that particular whirlpool of the mind, and your behavior and your thoughts are dictated by that. So it's very, very interesting to see and understand how the energy of the mind works within us, and observe your mind. And when some things are happening that you like or don't like, then just don't be very judgmental on yourself and others, but look at yourself and say, let me try to understand what is happening there. If I were an observer of that mind, independently looking from outside, what would I see? What would be the process that's happening? Because knowledge is power, and then you can apply that knowledge um, to get some mastery over it and control over it. So here in this river of cosmic mind, these are so many whirlpools which are called individual minds. You'll find that birds of a feather flock together, as we say. So what does that mean? Here it will mean that minds that are similarly tuned, of a similar frequency, of similar spin, they will tend to gravitate together. And you form a team, you feel comfortable in the company of those people. And then there are others there who are spinning in a different way, and they're a bit abrasive. You try to shy away from them, you don't feel comfortable with them, you try to remain because just their ideas, their thoughts do not resonate with us. So Try to understand the impact of all our thoughts, words, and deeds, and ask yourself, whatever we are doing at any time, whether we like it or not is immaterial, what is the result, the impact that is being left on the mind? Is it making this spinning, the intensity of the mind stronger? If it is, it's called pravritti. It binds you in this river of the. And if it is undoing the flow, then it is liberating. You should know which way to turn the screwdriver. If you turn it clockwise, it tightens. If you turn it anti-clockwise, it unwinds, comes out. So have that understanding. Secondly, understand when different people are interacting with others, basically it's the minds interacting with others. You can have a very nice, peaceful relationship in company with somebody, no arguments, nothing, because you're tuned to the same frequency. And another time you find another person whose mind is spinning in another way, and each one is trying to influence the other. It might be a conversation, it could be an argument also, but basically the two minds are trying to see which is more powerful and force itself on the other person. So you'll see. And when larger groups of people are there, then they all sort of add up and become one big large whirlpool. They all gravitate in one direction. So there could be two parties, like an election is coming. So some people will go on this side, some will go on that side. Basically, all those minds that resonate in one direction will sort of pull together. Now that's an idea. The reason I'm going through a little bit in more detail here is that before Sri Krishna goes and discusses about the Atman and Paramatman and all that Prakriti Purusha, he, after discussing the Kshetra, goes and discuss what is Jnana. And why would he say, he had in the beginning promised that he's going to talk about Kshetra and Kshetrajna. In between, he brings it this Jnana and talks about this Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, Ahimsa, Shanti, Arjavam. Some 5 verses from verse 7 to 11. In great detail, he talks about certain qualities that need to be practiced by a spiritual aspirant, a sadhaka. So why, if you might ask him, why is he doing it? Well, he knows that those qualities that are there are to be practiced, and they become the means to the end. Later on, he will talk about the whole thing, the goal of yoga and separation of the Purusha from Prakriti and all that. But that is setting the benchmark. That is setting the benchmark. More interesting, more important, setting the benchmark is to find out what will take me to that goal. And this is a fault or problem that we find most of the time when people expect some people to do other things, give instructions. You should be like this, you should not do that, you should do that. That's all very fine. What that person who is struggling is needing some help about how to control himself or reach that goal. For example, if people in this world, when you talk about people they need to be resilient, mental health, So everyone is saying you should be strong and resilient and everything. But how many people can tell a child or somebody to become strong and resilient? That practical help is, the means are more important than the end. So here Sri Krishna talks about those means. Verses 7 to 11 in great detail talk about those things, on those qualities to be practiced. And the result will come. Swami Vivekananda once met this great yogi, Pahavari Baba. He was given this name because he lived in a little cave somewhere on the outskirts of Banaras. Most of the time immersed in his own tapasya and all that. And hardly he will meet people and talk or come out and eat. So people wondered, how does he survive in there? And so it's like he's living on air. And that's how he got the name Pawan Hari Baba. Pawan means air, Hari means he is eating air, that's why he's surviving like that. So his name was got Pavari Baba, place Ghazipur. Swami Vivekananda went and met him. And he had some wonderful conversations with this wonderful sage. Later on, he narrates and he says that one of the things he learned from this great sage was pay as much attention to the means as to the end. Always pay as much attention to the means as to the end. Otherwise, we are always looking at the target. I should reach this, I should read this. Like somebody is trying to become a doctor or engineer, and he's always dreaming of the day he will graduate, but he's not doing his classes and assignments, all that sincerely. Well, he's not paying attention to the means, he's just thinking and dreaming of the final result. On the other hand, somebody has set the goal but puts his head down and tails up, as they say, and slogs through all those things, the courses, the results will come. So in sadhana also, while we understand the goal is mukti and liberation, and whichever way, if you want to be a jivan mukta and all those things, fine. But begin to pay attention to the sadhana, what you do day by day. All that will take you to the destination. So pay attention. Do you get up in the morning and do your meditation properly with great intensity? Is there improvement in the quality of your meditation? Are you spending more and more time within yourself? Do you feel some change that is happening in that process there? Then that is more important than always saying, I should become free, I should become free. That is good that you have to set a goal, but paying attention and working day by day onto that. So these qualities, what Sri Krishna talks about, jnana, are about those disciplines. There are so many of those listed in these 5 verses. Do you practice all of them? Well, if you master all of them, they will become a very complicated person. What you do is take any one of them, a few of them, whichever appeal to you most, and apply to the, or practice them with great sincerity and intensity. You'll find that in the history of mankind, there are many great people, and we look at them. We normally associate one particular quality with them, as if they were the very embodiments of that one quality. So if you say Gandhi, okay, people will say, oh, ahimsa, he practiced that one, ahimsa. If I say Raja Harishchandra, then somebody will say he was the very embodiment of truthfulness. Whatever would happen, he would never forsake truth. And other things all align themselves to that one quality. So in our life, we should have some central spiritual practice or value that we should hold on to as the very core of your existence, or what defines your identity or identity. And you'll find that other qualities will automatically begin to marshal around that and begin to manifest around that central spiritual practice. So otherwise, if you are just otherwise it can, all these hundreds of instructions and all that are there can make life very, very complicated. Have one central focus and let everything be built around that pillar. While I'm here on this particular point, let me also talk about something else about the mind, because at the end of the day, we are only going to grapple with this mind. So the minds, the different minds are there. They are going in a whirlpool. What is the characteristic of that whirlpool? Some are moving fast, some are small. So let us say we use the word of a frequency, F1, F2, F3, and like this. So all are at different planes. If you want to represent them in another way, imagine there's like the frequency meter in your old radio, and you had this tuning thing where the different bandwidths are there. And imagine that different people's minds are tuned to different frequencies. So this is F1, F2. So imagine that when you're in a room with people, there are different minds. All the minds are energy. They're all pulsating, vibrating at different frequencies. That's how they have been constituted. That constitution has happened not in this lifetime, but is a result of many, many lifetimes. And they think in that particular way, they act in that particular way. We call it, that is their nature, or that is their swabhava. Swabhava, that is the intrinsic base frequency. Around that function, they function. Around that frequency, they function. And so when these minds interact with each other, if they are at the same frequency, they will resonate very nicely with each other. You are happy with each other. And when they are not at the same frequency, then you're trying to get a point across to them. and they are not able to understand you, and vice versa. So you'll hear your children tell the parents, oh, my parents don't understand me. So you ever wondered why they, yes, it's very interesting. I find it all the time. I talk to these kids and ask this one question. They say, no, 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 they don't understand us. And so they understand that we are on a different frequency. No point going in talking to this outdated, old-fashioned people like this. Then when they're in problem, they will go to somebody else, and that's where the problems come. So it's very, very important that children should make an effort, and parents should also make an effort, try to get on the right frequency so that we can communicate with each other. Most of the time, this communication problem comes because we are at different frequencies. So that is one point. Second point, so point is everyone is defined as at a particular frequency. And when we say we are on the same page, or we are comfortable with each other, or birds of a feather flock together, or we have adjusted ourselves in a particular country, place, or in a group. It's all about this micro adjustments that happen in our mental makeup, so to say, or mental frequency. The other important thing, or more important here in terms of mental health, is to understand that only those ideas and thoughts can affect us and influence us, so which are in that particular bandwidth we are. For example, so in this space here, there's hundreds of TV signals, radio signals. If I had a TV, if I tune it to a particular frequency, I will only receive those videos and audios from the frequency that I'm tuned to. Okay, so imagine in that way that if your mind goes up and you're in this wonderful space, just like you tune your TV up or raise the frequency of the radio up, then if you can raise your mind up, what happens? All the wonderful ideas that are there, that frequency and high frequency, they begin to enter into you and you begin to receive them. Okay. So up and down in this whole spectrum of the universe, there are different thoughts and ideas, energies that have been thought and acted upon by people in different ages and times. They are all available to us, but we can only connect with those ideas or receive those ideas to which we are tuned to. So in the Bhagavad Gita, when Sri Krishna is trying to understand or teach Arjuna about his health, mental health issue, he was all confused and depressed just before the war. First chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the depression of Arjuna. And one of the teachings Sri Krishna gives is a very, very practical, logical thing. He says, my friend, look, I can tell you and give you a good advice. Your mind is depressed. Depressment has come down somewhere at some low level. So, and so when you're there, then all these lower level ideas, thoughts that have been thought by you and by other people there, they are all rushing and influencing you, and they probably will drag you further down. If you can, through your effort, raise this mind to another level here, then all these nice ideas that were the higher ideas, they will come into your salvation and support and help guide you. So two things happen when you raise your mind through your japa and meditation and spiritual practices. You free yourself from the influence of the negative ideas that are available at the lower frequencies, and you open yourself to the influence of the wonderful positive ideas that are there. And both are necessary. But what has to be done is this upliftment has to be there. So he says, Uddharet Atmana Atmanam, Na Atmanam Avsadayet, Atmanneva Atmano Bandhu, Atmanneva Ripuratmana. Raise yourself by your own self-effort. Do not lower yourself. If you can raise yourself, you are your own friend, Atmanneva Atmano Bandhu. And if your mind goes to a lower frequency, lower plane, then you are your own enemy. Not that there are enemies out there. The first thing happens, your own mind goes down, then only other minds can affect you. So we should blame and take the responsibility on ourselves first, that how did my mind come down to that level that it has been able to now come under the influence of such people? And that's with that understanding, because then the control is in your own hand, and you say, well, if I can lift myself up, then those things will not be able to affect me. It happens at the mental level, at the physical level. For example, if your immune system goes down, then we fall sick, because every little bacteria, virus can make us sick. But if your immune system is good, you can still live in the midst of all those bacteria and virus, and they do not infect you, do not make you sick. You did not go around killing and shooting all this bacteria and virus. We improved our immune system, immunity, and therefore they cannot affect us, infect us. Likewise, imagine these bacteria and viruses are all these negative low energies out there. They can infect you. And you can think about it, how people get infected by all these ideas, all these conspiracy theorists and all these things. Where do they get? They are this lower type of ideas. People listen to them. Somehow it resonates with them. Next thing, they are researching on the internet and talking to people. And before you know, they become conditioned, and then their behavior, their thoughts and everything begin to be affected and infected by all those negative ideas. We might be very, very judgmental and say, what is this crazy people? Doesn't he have enough common sense to understand that vaccines are not bad and these things like this? How come people in this age still say that the earth is flat? In this age, do you know that if you go and do a little research on the internet, there are so many people out there who think this earth is flat earthers there. They really believe it. And you might say, one thing is to say, stupid or dull or buddhu, how can they be so dumb? Or the other way say, why is it this person, in spite of all that knowledge that is there, information there, still thinks in this way? That second way is trying to understand that person. And if you understand that person, then you'll not be so judgmental. At least you'll try to think and help, but not try to be so reactive and abusive in that way. So everyone has got their mind at different levels. And what is influencing us, what we receive, depends the frequency at which we are tuned to. And at the same time, if you are also mindful what type of ideas you are radiating out to the world and giving to the world. You could be sitting down there and thinking of wonderful, noble, sublime things for the good of the whole universe. Or one can be there sitting harmful things for others. Somebody is not very good, wish he was dead or something like that. If you think like that, you're polluting that mental space with those type of ideas. Those ideas radiate out of you. And it might catch one more vulnerable person out there and drag that person down. Or if it's a noble idea, it can lift that person up. So we are in this river of this mind. In that mind, so many whirlpools are there. We all are whirlpools having our own identity, which is now built up with all these impressions of thoughts, words, deeds, and actions of this lifetime and from previous lifetime. And we are influencing others. We are radiating of some of that energy out. We are also getting influenced by others, and we are absorbing that energy others from others also. So that is how these mental interactions are beginning to happen, whether it's in a family, whether it's in a group, in a team, or whichever way, we are constantly bombarding or affecting and infecting others, so you might say. So when we take up this path of spirituality, we are very mindful that we want to always be alert in lifting this mind to a higher plane, for two reasons. One, we want to free ourselves from the influences of lower ideas that are there all around us. And secondly, we want to open ourselves to the influences of wonderful positive ideas that are there, that have been thought by great saints, sages, noble people, available at that high frequency. But when we are not tuned to them, we are not being able to benefit from them. So this is how, if we can have that conception of the world that we are living in, it's not a world of land and buildings and roads and people, physical only things. In a more subtle way, we are in this vast ocean of ideas and thoughts. And we individuals are little whirlpools with powerful minds, spinning those ideas and thoughts, injecting some more fresh energy into it, and that we are throwing out, and others are also and receiving at the same time. It's a very, very complex world when we see how these minds are acting and reacting with each other. And it's not static type of thing. It's quite changeable. Sometimes you find two people who are matching for a while and then they totally unmatched, and you say, what happened there? You come together, you're entangled, comfortable, happy, and then sometimes you are not. You begin to lose control. Two people do two different frequencies. We say different interests are there and all those type of things. But try to see this all in a more detached, objective way as different minds working on each other, influencing each other, getting influenced, and say, what can we do to be a positive contributor into this whole mind space? So in my earlier discussions, we had talked about that what happens in a microcosmic level in an individual, what in that mind space, we talked about, especially in those classes in Pratyabhijna Hridayam, we talked about how an influence, a sensation that comes into us through what we see, hear, or touch, and then that's your observed, and there is another power inside us as the consciousness, pure consciousness inside, which is your Atman. That's the observer, and the two come together, and in that junction is what is called an experience. We had a look up at that, excuse me. And that was from the perspective of seeing how we can disentangle ourselves from it. But here, when you live in this world, we are not alone. We are constantly being bombarded with all types of thoughts, words, ideas, known and unknown to us, some tangible, some very subtle, and they have an impact and impression on us, unknown to us. And how do we live? How do we thrive? Not only survive, it requires some deep understanding. So when spiritual teachers tell us always seek out satsang, spiritual company, what they're trying to tell us, trying to raise or reach out ideas or be in company of people whose minds, satsang means noble ideas, noble people at some higher level. That means go to a place where there's some, you are in the company of people where some such spiritual practices, thoughts, words, and deeds are practiced. That's why we have this satsangs on Sundays fortnightly here. That's why we try to meet online and share these ideas. That's why now and then in a more intense way, we get together for a spiritual retreat. So it's not just 1 hour, but for 1 day and a half, with great intensity, with a lot of spiritual practices, meditation, discussion. We expose ourselves to that type of spiritual energy, soak that in, and go back home little bit more charged, little bit more uplifted. And when you're up there so long, when you go to a nice place, a nice company, your mind goes up, you feel elevated, you feel very nice, happy. But when the mind begins to come down, then the world begins to rush in and drag it down, 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 down. So now and then we have to get out of that situation and go into these quiet places for intensity. So with that idea, should we go to those? I will not go through all those 5 verses that are there. You can go through them. They're just a list of qualities. We can explore them all in great detail to understand each one of them. That can again take us a lot more time. But today I thought I'll talk a little bit about these ideas discussed so far today about the mind, how it influences one another. And before I go to these verses, maybe we should open ourselves to some discussions. That is more fun. So ask all to unmute. All right. All of you. So many people are just showing as guests and I can't recognize them.
Swamiji, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Samiran.
Yes, Samiran.
Sorry, I had a couple of questions, but before that, I just
Uh,
wanted to say that.
you ask one question today, and we'll let us
Okay,
give a little bit of space to others also.
yeah, yeah, sure. Um, so you spoke about the frequencies. When I'm talking to someone, either at my workplace or just a friend, and even if I have or I feel that I've got a balanced mind and it comes down, it is dragged down to a level, how do I actually influence someone or someone else's frequency to bring it up to my level at times because it gets dragged down? So I can probably take some action on myself that it won't come down. But what is the way that I can uplift someone else's frequency
You change the
of
subject of the
someone?
conversation.
Okay.
You'll probably, talk about something else, give another subject matter. Whether if that man is able to drag your mind down, well, can you lift him up? So if your ideas are very strong, and that's what happens, two people are talking together and they disagree. One of them is trying to say, see my point of view, the other one is saying another point of view. Sometimes they listen to each other and happy with us. Sometimes they have an argument. Sometimes they'll just walk away and say, enough of you, I can't put up with you, type of thing. All these are their minds colliding. Sometimes they soak up and interact. Sometimes they will just disconnect and you'll see that in the behavior pattern out there. So normally in a very confronting situation, most people are not very receptive. Everyone feels, so you see, imagine this mind that is there, it has a sense of its identity. This is what I am. This are what they define me. These ideas I believe in. This is my perspective. This is my point of view. And he feels secure in that somehow. That is my identity. So when an influence comes from outside, it's like an energy entering into you. A new idea is entering into you. It might be a foreign idea or something. And because it is so different from you, it unsettles you. And you might feel a little bit vulnerable at that time, as if you're losing your balance in a foothold. And then people become defensive. Say, no, 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 this is like I'm getting hurt, or this is too powerful for me. And the reaction that you'll find is sometimes, okay, people have different types of reactions. Some people will just simply become quiet and disengage. I'm not going to talk to you. One way conversation is going there, the other person is not listening to you. Okay, sometimes you'll find children are there. Parents are telling them and it's going over their head. They're not responding to you because they know their defense mechanism is not to let it even enter into you. Another person might be very confrontational. He might turn around and argue with you also. And it can become very loud also. Basically, if you look at the psychology of it, this is the natural defense mechanism. And some people are very open and say, yeah, you can share all your ideas. I'm comfortable with you. I can take it and I can listen with you. And I might agree or might not agree, but I don't feel threatened by you. Others are there who are very, very delicate and vulnerable. In there, any idea can really throw them off their balance, and no one wants to be thrown off balance. And so such persons will react to that very strongly. So you'll find these two categories of personalities. One are very strong within themselves, and others are very delicate and tender and vulnerable within themselves. Those who are of the second category, they're like an egg. It's all very delicate inside, but they will build a shell, a protective shell around them. Okay. And you would not be able to penetrate that. Why? Because they feel so vulnerable inside, and the reaction would be there when a new idea is about to enter. So that's like the egg category, you might say. Externally, very tough, showing bravado and argumentative, strong voice and language and all those type of things there. Why? Because inside they're very, very vulnerable. This is like a defense mechanism. If you look around and think of people, you'll find so many people who are like that. And then the second category who are very strong inside, like a mango. Okay, seed is very strong, outside is nice and very soft. You can talk with them, you can joke with them, you can poke fun with them, you can challenge them, you can argue with them, yet they don't react very well strongly. They take it in and soak it in. Why? Because within themselves, they don't feel threatened. And you'll find these two broad categories of people around when you're dealing with them. And if you can sort of, without being too judgmental, but knowing what type of people you're dealing with, then you probably know how you can approach that person with an idea, a positive idea. But talking, so this is something that I just mentioned about this personality types, so to say. Coming to that question about influencing somebody. Well, always you'll find that people, if you give them something positive, uplifting, and nobling, people will not reject it if you put it in a nice way without being forceful about it. I say, here's an idea, think about it. You might like it or not, it's up to you, but just give a thought to it. And that person says, it's okay, okay. But if you say, no, you must believe this, this is, then immediately he feels threatened and he begins to react to it. So it's about your strategy of your understanding how you are dealing with that mind. So next time when you have a conversation with somebody and you see that person in front of you, your boss, your colleague, or somebody, see if you can utilize this perspective and say, tell yourself, here in front of me is a mind. That mind has been conditioned by so many, many lifetimes and experiences that I have no clue about. And also in this lifetime, that person is more or less at the mercy of that conditioned mind. It's not that he's saying something because he likes or dislikes it, or he's in total control of himself. What I get from his responses by his behavior is some indication of the general content of what is there in there. And I'm dealing with this particular person. Now, can I deal with him without stirring him it up in a very negative way? Or can I deal with that person in a very uplifting and positive way? And if you can do that, then people will open themselves and you'll get an opportunity to give something good and they feel better about themselves. Uh, you can even scold somebody in a positive way. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is giving a scolding to Arjuna. Arjuna is a great warrior. He wanted to fight. He got all these armies together. At the last moment, he wants to run away. So somebody will tell, you're a coward, useless fellow, good for nothing. Why did you find all those negative things you can tell? That's one type of scolding is there. How does Sri Krishna scold this person? He says, you're a great warrior. People respect you. This behavior does not befit you. Nai etat tvai upapadhyate. This behavior does not befit you. We expect something higher from you. Rise up to that expectation that everyone is there. So there's a positive type of scolding. So if suppose somebody at work, somebody just did not do something properly, and the boss calls him to the office, instead of pointing out all the faults and whatever he did, which makes that fellow more miserable and defensive, now he stops listening and maybe he's trying to give so many excuses. If he says, hey, look, we all have this wonderful expectation. You can do much better. You come with all the training, blah, 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 all this. And before you know, that guy is all very, it just, the whole environment changes. He responds in a very positive way. First thing you say, boss, I'm sorry, acknowledges his fault. Secondly, he feels that they have such an expectation that he has to respond to that great expectation. He says, I promise I will do better. I won't do this again. He was also scolded, but the approach was so different. One brings him down by pointing all the shortcomings, which that person already knows, and makes him more miserable. He comes out of that office really depressed and sunken and all that. The other one, he comes out of this office with that smile and said, my boss still trusts me and he has that faith in me and I will try my best to live up to that expectation, etc., etc. So you see, two minds came and interacted. One was an uplifting influence, the other was a negative influence. It's how you influence that particular person. So this is all a bit of psychology, but I suppose you can utilize it in all environments, at home, at work, and everywhere, dealing with people. But understanding people as minds is a wonderful, area of thinking and research and experimenting and all that. treating people mind. Before we talk about the Atman thing and all that, that is too high at that level, but we're dealing with people all the time as mind. Someone else?
So, Namaste Swamiji, this is Ronil here.
I don't know.
Hi. So, I had a related question, I think. So, it's around the ego, the interplay of the mind and the ego. Is ego a byproduct of the mind, or is it sum total of all the thoughts, beliefs, and habits that come together that craft it?
So there are four functional aspects of within us, what we call
Mm,
antakarana. Karana means an organ. So bahishkarana are the gyanendriyas, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, all those type of things. Antakarana is the mind. But
mm,
mind is a more generic term. If you want to divide it into its functional in more detail, then they're called mana, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara.
mhm,
Man, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara. Ahankara is the ego, that I sense, I am something.
mm,
Buddhi is the power of discrimination, that is looking at what is happening in the mind, good, bad, right, wrong, I should do this, I should not do this, I should say, I should not say, that type of thing. Manas is sankalpa vikalpatmita. It's a sort of indecisive stage where thoughts are coming, going, good, bad. He is sort of floating around there. It is like the waves, the ripples in that whirlpool. And chitta is the mind stuff. So in our example, the water in the river is chitta.
mm,
Okay, that's a substance. In that, there is a vritti. Vritti means a whirlpool. Okay, here, and that would be your mana. But the direction and the control of that flow is regulated by some force, some next level, and that is called the buddhi. And the ego is that central pillar around which that whole whirlpool is sort of rotating around, which appropriates, has a sense of identity. This is what I am, type of
mm,
thing. So the ego is at the core of it. In the
mm,
Patanjali Yoga Sutra, when this individuality is formed, that means in the ocean, when the wave appears, the individual comes, that individual feels itself separate from others and separate from the ocean. So it has got a sense of identity. That comes because he has forgotten his spiritual universal oneness, his oneness with Paramatman and Brahman. So that is called avidya. Then comes asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So the first one is avidya, the
mm,
primal cause because of which we have become disconnected from the Supreme Being. Then comes this I sense, asmita, I am. And that I sense has got this energy around him, and certain things it likes, is attracted to, and certain things he feels aversion to, dislikes. So raga is liking certain things, dvesha is aversion, is disliking. That means you are now colliding with different other waves or whirlpools. Those who are in the same direction, you are gravitating towards them. Those who are in the opposite direction, you are being repelled from them. And abhinivesha is having that strong feeling that I'm this physical body, and clinging to life, basically. This individuality, the whirlpool wants to continue, so to say, in this lifetime and next lifetime, hopefully go to a heaven where there's not too many disturbance, but I want to continue as the whirlpool, this individuality, or as the jiva that is there. So the ego is the center of it. And yeah, it is sometimes very, very strong, abrasive, knocking around like billiard balls, colliding. Others are there, they will be gentle, soaking around and mixing and matching around that. Yeah.
thank you, Swamiji.
Okay. I got time for one more question.
Yeah.
No more?
Okay, I was thinking. Swamiji?
Who's this?
Jasu.
Just
Um,
don't
I
ask
was.
don't ask very difficult questions.
I don't know whether this is a good question or not, but there are levels of mind, like they say, upper mind and the lower mind. Explain that.
Upper mind and lower mind
Yes.
within the
Higher
same person.
higher mind and the lower mind. So
Oh,
this.
basically what I was talking there, maybe there what your meaning is talking about this buddhi thing that I'm talking about. See? So
Yeah.
so if you say the supreme consciousness, my I sense the Atman is there, then this how do I represent this? There's a faculty called intelligence. Okay, or buddhi.
Mm.
This is the higher mind. And this lower mind is basically all those type of thoughts and ideas that are there. Okay. And there's even lower than that is something where all these are instinctive.
Mm.
So you'll find that instinctive, reasoning, and this is intuitive.
Right.
Okay, so you'll find animals, children, all those things, they are very, very instinctive. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm thirsty, I drink, I don't think about it. Mosquito bites, you hit it like that, you don't reason. It's just like happening in an impulsive way. Reasoning is a factor that you find in human beings where they process that information that is there, they plan, they think deeply, all those things that separates us from animals.
Mm.
And there is an intuitive factor where you arrive at the truth. This is where the buddhi comes.
Yeah.
Somebody's speaker is making a lot of noise. Yeah.
Yeah. So buddhi is intellect.
Buddhi is intellect, and that is the faculty that we want to develop in our sadhana. So really, through meditation and japa, this is what is being developed. And this is the observer that is looking down here at the mind space and saying, these are the things happening, but in a detached way he's watching. Okay, and then he makes choices and say, this one should go, this one should not happen. You're making a decision. So if this buddhi is awake, alert,
Mm.
then you have control on your thought process, decisions and all those things. But if this fellow is half asleep or drunk or absent, then the mind just simply goes here and there, everywhere type of things. And in spiritual practice, this awakening of the buddhi is the first thing that we want to do. So during the time of meditation, what you do, you try to give yourself one particular form of the divine, okay, and one mantra, okay, and they say, I will not allow too many other thoughts to come. I will just try to keep focused on one of them. What you are doing is doing an exercise, mental exercise, where the buddhi is becoming strengthened. So you can focus for a while, then it goes away, focus for a while. But as you practice, you'll be able to hold the mind on one particular point. And as that buddhi becomes stronger, just like going to the gymnasium, do so many exercises, you get the muscles. Later on, you can lift so many other things which are in your everyday life. So this buddhi then becomes the great friend, and it guides you in every decision making, not only in your spiritual practice, but in your everyday thing. This buddhi is the upper mind.
Yeah.
We call that the spiritual intelligence.
Mm.
And that
Is that the reflective mind, Swami?
that is a reflective mind. Because later on, as the mind becomes purer and purer, this vrittis become less and less and less. Okay, if this vrittis become less, this vritti becomes less, like this. At some point, this mind here becomes very sattvic, and then the light that was coming from the top, which was going through to the senses and all that, now some of it is now beginning to reflect back. So it becomes like a mirror. Okay. And in that mirror, you behold yourself within. Otherwise, that energy that is there of the mind, it just fritters away out here, constantly getting drained and wasted, in exhausted, depleted, tired. That is happening. What we want to do is arrest that outflow. Okay, we want to arrest that and turn that light backwards so that you can behold yourself just like we see ourselves in the mirror. If we can use this example that way. So the secret is of all spiritual practice is to develop this buddhi power. And japa and meditation, this the power of the mantra has got this capacity to neutralize all this type of karmas and thoughts and vibes that are there in the mind space and promote the production of what is called this buddhi. And then this buddhi becomes really the tool by which we get a glimpse of the inner nature and the nature of the inner Atman. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, very good. So I think that is enough for today. And we are going to have a retreat on 22nd, 23rd, 24th of September. The subject is the science of mantras. Here we are just talking a little bit here and there. There we will go really deep into it and understand what those mantras are as capsules of spiritual energy through which we can purify our own mind and what they call discover who really we are and how to apply that in our everyday life. You can join, come over to the Waimauku Center, or you can join online. If you're in Auckland, physically being there is better, but at least you deeply understand, and that gives you some inspiration to use those mantras, seriously. Otherwise, you might say, "Aaj ka 108 ho gaya, bas."
I like that expression of yours. 108 ho gaya bas.
Because Guru said that much, and I have done my part, and that's it, type of thing, because you do not know what is supposed to do, But if you know it very well, then I said, let me do an hour, half an hour, and all that. Anyway, let us conclude. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tassat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.